In the Clive Barker Podcast, longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you the news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. In episode 467, we talk about some obscure releases and rumors, Jose found some old archival interviews, and we celebrate Clive Barker's birthday. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver in Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over his Pinterest page and commissioning a painting of your own. For commissions, Don requires no money down, and there will be no obligation on your part. You can also head over to the Etsy shop to buy one of his books, like A Chimney Sweep's Tale, Celebrate Imagination, or The Imaginaries. Follow the link in the show notes, or click on the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. Take a look at The Sun Watchers, The Descendant, and the truth behind it all on Don Bertram's Facebook page. Also, please take a look at his videos. He's got one where he goes over the Bug Brothers, an original Clive Barker painting that he owns. And he's got an introduction to the 35th anniversary screening of Hellraiser. Of course, the best way to support this podcast is through our Patreon at patreon.com/BarkerCast589. Our subscribers will get exclusive access to content not available anywhere else, like our Collector's Corner video series, rare Barker videos, and early behind-the-scenes stuff. Plus, backers in the $10 tier will also be able to choose an episode topic, and we might mail you something once in a while, depending on your location. Our supporters also get access to the exclusive channel in our Discord server. We'll be forever grateful if you consider helping us out and subscribing to our Patreon. So what's new on Patreon? Welcome, Jose. How's it going?
Hi, Ryan. As we record this, it's Saturday the 12th, and I just had to work a full day today. Although it was Saturday, but I'm always glad to join up and talk about news from the Reef that we're going to get into.
Yeah, we've collected. Mostly you've collected. I added a couple on here too, but a whole bunch of news stories that we can get into. I guess, but first, let's do our shout out to our Patreon members. So thanks a lot, David Anderson, Erik Van T Holt, Daniel Elven, Amanda Stewart, and our returning sponsor, Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Thanks, you guys.
Love you guys. You're our heroes.
And so, as far as what's new for our Patreon subscribers, it looks like you've got one in the works, right, that maybe will be ready to go when this posts tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about some Hellraiser computer games, Part 1. I've gathered up some stuff here about some of those vaporware Hellraiser games, and I've managed to find quite a lot of stuff on the internet now. Back in the day, we didn't really have much to go by. We only had little small images that we could find in the Hellraiser Hellbound Web website. Yeah. As, more people put more stuff online and make articles about this, we start getting more stuff, including treatments from some of these games and better images about what they might have looked like, or promotional ads, or even magazine articles that were referencing that these games were eventually being worked on. I'll try to gather up as much stuff as I can and start putting that as articles about the story of these games and how far did they go into production and what happened to.
So that'll be a Patreon exclusive. Well, one thing I was going to ask you about that also, if you remember, we did an episode about video games and art, I think it was. And that's was right. way back in maybe our first or second year. And so that, I think, if I remember right, I think we also talked about the Hellraiser games that never came out back then. So there might be some stuff to jog your memory in there. You probably have got more than what we did back then, but...
No, yeah, that's a good point. I should probably go back and see if there might be something that I forgot, because we've been doing this thing for over 10 years, and sometimes I forget things and I rediscover them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot Clive was involved in this, or I forgot that I knew about this stuff, and then eventually I forgot, and now here it is again. So that's a good suggestion.
And then you dragged out something from the very early days of the internet, from 1995 or 94, 95, something like that. A story with no title and a street with no name. And this is another Patreon exclusive post that's already out now. But can you explain what that was?
Back in the day, there was a website called Kaleidospace, which actually was created by this lady, this artist, Jeannie Novak. She basically wanted to create a website where she could sell her own piano music. And she created this... ended up with a website that distributed and promoted independently produced art, music, films, performance. And one of the artists in residence that they started gathering, names to join their website and put some of their work through that website was Clive Barker. And he contributed with a short beginning of a story. And then people who visited the website could submit the continuation, another part to keep the story going.
Yeah.
And I think they managed to come up with about 13 different parts. Not all of them in sequence, of course. Everybody wants to write the part 2. There's a whole bunch of those. And then eventually someone starts making a daisy chain from another part that they liked. And then another person continues the story from there. So the story didn't go very far, but I managed to compile everything from the Internet Archive, and I found a way to rescue all the different parts, and I compiled them into a PDF that you can download. Along
I saw
with,
that, yeah, and I read through that. I was mainly curious to see if I had contributed, but that was, I think, probably before I was on the proper World Wide Web. In 1995, I was still just doing bulletin board systems, calling where you dial into somebody's computer at home.
I remember trying to write a part for this. It was the character in the story is called Vickerel, which I don't know if this is a reference to Fred Vickerel, who worked with Clive for a while. But I did try to create something where this guy would enter this room and find the great treatise and have to face off with a demon and stuff. The demon would be in the dark, and there would be the books floating around and stuff. So, and he would be wielding a godless blade. Anyway, it's been a long time since this was, so I don't even remember anything. But I do remember my idea of having a showdown with the guy facing off with a demon in a library, which eventually I ended up making my own little story about that, where it involves an angel and a demon, also stuck in a book before I ever read Clive Barker's Mr. Begone. I had a story where I would have this character that would start reading this book, and he would find out that there was a demon stuck inside the book. And as he read the book, he would release the demon, but then an angel would appear to restrain the demon and put him back into the book or something. 10
years before Mr. Begone came out.
Yeah, that I never really finished that. That's just basic strokes that I can recall.
Yeah, that's.
But
cool.
Yeah, there were some cool people who actually contributed to this. I never actually sent this to the website because I just remember writing about it. But like a lot of stuff that I started, I never finished it. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But that was fun. There was a guy here. There was an author here that wrote a part. His name was Steve Rasnick-Tem. He actually is a current winner of a British Fantasy Award, World Fantasy Award, and 4 Bram Stoker Awards. Wow. And back in the day, he was one of the guys who tried to make a part for this Clive Barker story. So I think cool. He was already published at the time. So that's interesting that he contributed.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was another story. It was called Odyssey, I think, right? There was a similar situation to this, but years later.
Many
Clive
years
Barker
later.
Did a start, and I remember contributing to that one.
That was with the DeviantArt, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I remember that. We covered that when it happened.
Yeah. And then next we've got, you did a BarkerCast recap, a conversation with editor and author Stephen Jones, which was, kind of your thoughts coming off of, we had a really great interview with Stephen Jones. And for people out there that haven't listened to that, that's one of our regular episodes. You should go check that out. And so kind of coming off of that one, you had some more thoughts that you wanted to write down of your opinions and and just to share the excitement about, what it was like for us talking to him, which was really cool.
Yeah, maybe some links to stuff and links to some of the work that he's put out. It's hard to see that on Patreon because the links in Patreon just show up as slightly more bolded text. Yeah. They don't really come out in a different color or anything like that. That would make it stand out.
It's a more primitive format than our blog.
Yeah, but any part of the post that has like a bolded text, those are links that you can click to see more original works and the collections that our guest Stephen Jones has been a part of or edited or worked in.
And in a few weeks, we'll move that into the blog post version of that so everybody can see it too. Because that's a cool post, and it'll be good to share with everybody.
Yeah, usually we keep it like a week or so, and then all our Patreon members can see these blog posts a week in advance. And then eventually, some of them we can always make public so other fans can read. But you guys are always here and reading it first.
Yeah. And then there's your Patreon special. Thank you for being here. And that one was a story of how we met and how we started the podcast and what we were doing in our fandom and creatively before the podcast.
Yeah,
Kind of a neat story
little
to read.
A neat little trip that will continue, I promise. I've got some stuff to talk about. And David Anderson posted, I remember Emmett the Crab and the girl who loved Scott Bakula. Thanks for the good times, guys. Yeah.
I had until he brought that up, I had completely forgotten about that girl that all she wanted to talk about was Scott Bakula.
Oh, yeah. And that guy Fallon.
Yeah, with
1911
his Rawhead
or
collection.
Something. Yeah, he had some great masks and little models and neat stuff that was professionally painted. Yeah. Very cool stuff.
And then I put up the process for posting an episode. We've got a lot of behind the scenes stuff in our private Patreon only section, like all our past Kickstarter videos and things like that. So and the stuff that has to do with like how to put together an episode or the behind the scenes stuff for what we do, I like to put in the Patreon section. So we've got that one in there. And then coming soon, the Book Club of Blood that we've talked about. I think our first one of our Patreon, I think it was Erik, wanted to be in on our first one, but he's going to be on vacation until after Halloween. So we're going to probably do that first, the Book of Blood episode, beginning of November.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm all here for it. There's a lot of stuff that we can revisit for the Book of Blood movies.
Well, it'd be a good good way to kick in Halloween or send off Halloween, I guess, depending.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of our Patreon stuff. I'm looking forward to all of that. And so I guess with that behind us, we should get into our news from the Reef, because there's a ton. So first off, if you guys remember last time, we had some news about a possible Jericho remake, because on Reddit, this guy had posted some screenshots and some videos of gameplay videos of an upscaled Jericho with, that was in the third person, so you could see behind the backs of the characters and stuff. And he's like, look at this. And, my friend is playtesting this game, and so now there's an update, and it's, we said at the time this was a rumor, and the update pretty well confirms it. I mean, we don't know the veracity of any of this stuff, but this seems like this is probably the case. So this guy came on here and talked about, hey, I'm the developer for a fan-made mod for Jericho, the Windows version. And he said, you can do all this stuff in my mod. And he said, it's upscaled to HD. It's got, and it's got a third person mode. And he said, and plus the guy who posted that stuff is a brand new account on Reddit. And so I'm like, oh man. So I put a little comment in his post. I'm like, hey, is the guy, I named the guy from the original post. Like, are you going to sound off on there? What do you have to say? Because really, I just want to get to the news of this, if there is any.
Right.
And really,
right.
I guess really all there is to know is that most realistic answer is that there's a mod out there, right? Fan-made mod for Jericho to upscale it and let you play in third person.
So I think, from what I understood, and I read this on the Clive Barker subreddit, thanks to you finding this is not just a mod of the game, but also he says here that this mod is a gameplay-heavy mod. There is a base mod which makes the game moddable first, and that is S-Mod made by Skakik PL. So it looks like this is kind of like there's the game, there's a mod that puts a framework on top of the game which allows you to change things in the game. And so that's why they got all these like fan-made textures and stuff. Yeah. So it makes sense. I thought at the time when you brought this up the first time, I imagined this might be related to something fan-made. Because I know there's people that have been working on fan-made remasters of things like Undying and stuff, in Russia and places like that. So,
and it seems like we would have heard about this if this was really officially coming back.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is, like you said, it's bearing the lead is that there is a mod out there that has all these like cool textures, and you can actually, it's an upscaled version of the game. Yeah. I don't know that I'm technical enough to be able to know how to install this, but I can certainly try. I'm not sure if I can even get the game to run in my system. I would have to understand how this mod works, because the last time I had a CD for Jericho, and I tried installing that in my Windows 10, I could not find a way to install that in my Windows 10. Yeah. So I need to see if there's a cracked version that I could do. It's hard because when you start getting to the mods and cracked stuff like that, then it becomes a little iffy, like what you're installing in your computer.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I did find out about this, because it just got me looking around, and I can run Windows on my Mac, so I went into the GOG store, and I found you could still buy Undying on GOG, and it's cheap. So I think, for people that go, oh, I really liked Undying, you can still get that and play it on modern systems.
Oh, yeah. GOG is really good. It's a great website. It's totally reliable. Yeah, Undying for sure. I don't think Jericho's there, though, right?
No. Jericho used to be on Steam, too, but it's gone. And I think it has to do with it having, being a licensed game. It's not as easy to remake those because they got to track down the license holder and pay them to re-release stuff. And in this case, that would be Clive Barker would be having his name on the cover of it. Sure, that's why this thing is just a fan project. But if you're a technical guy out there and you want to give that a try, go to the Clive Barker subreddit and look up that Jericho remaster thing. I'm sure you'll find links to that, at least to what it looks like and who's working on it. Yeah. But honestly, Jericho is just a game I don't really feel the need to revisit. Although Undying is pretty cool. I would totally want to revisit that if I can get that to work again. Oh yeah, there's a GOG version, right? I should probably get that. Yeah, and I was playing Undying the other day, and I couldn't remember how to. There's like a way to look at something, like a voice goes, "Look," and you're supposed to look at something, and some ghost will show up, or it'll give you a clue. Yeah, you're supposed to use the scrying stone in the past. Yeah, and I couldn't remember what button to do to use the scrying stone. Oh, okay, yeah. In the old days, I made it through the whole game on the Mac version. Sure. But now I couldn't remember just basic controls for it. Well, it's been a while, right? Yeah. I mean, and you get used to other controls for other games that you played a lot more, like Baldur's Gate 3 or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I keep switching between, and we're not going to go on a tangent on games, but I started playing Starfield from Bethesda and No Man's Sky from Hello Games. And they're two kind of similar games in certain ways, but I found myself playing them because you're exploring space and you're visiting planets on both of those games, and you're also mining for resources. The thing is, I find myself trying to do one mechanic of one game in the other and the other mechanic in the other game, and it's like, it doesn't work here. I can't use this button for that. So, it can be a little confusing.
But Jericho, I just remember being very, very long-winded, especially in the shooting parts. If they had cut that down to like a quarter of the enemies, that would have been so much more streamlined.
Like
I think.
Those guys that have those like pustules on them that you have to shoot with the guns, and you have to hit like 4 of them on one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they blow up.
Yes.
It's just that the waves of enemies were just relentless and just kept on coming.
Yep. And then you'd have like Black, I think it was, would download new ammunition for you because she could make it magically appear.
But one of the good things about this is that the guy who created this mod, Sniper0087, he links to where you can find the 2K upscale textures for Jericho, for example. It's on Nexus Mods, which is a big mod website that you can go and... I didn't even know there was a section for that game there. I usually go to Nexus Mods, but it's mostly for mods for games like Skyrim and stuff. So apparently... I should go in there and see if I can check out what mods they have for Jericho.
There's a mod now for Baldur's Gate 3 that, well, it's been around forever, but they just allowed mods on console versions now. And so this game that normally allows you to have only 4 of your characters out at a time, now you can mod it so that you can have up to 16.
Nice. You become a wrecking crew.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like you bring the beat down to whatever match you come in with like 15 other followers, right?
Well,
16.
And a lot of it has to do with like different characters have different sort of like dialogue options and cutscenes and things, depending on, and so it's a balancing act to make sure that you bring the right people for each little part, because I've beaten the game like 6 times. And there's so many things that you learn in that game playing it over and over again. And so, but now having having like 12 people out, nobody misses anything.
I was reading more on this Jericho upscaled fan-made mod, and it even has like NVIDIA support here for certain things. Yeah, and reshade support. Yeah, that's why it looks so cool when they were posting images of that. It looks really crisp and very, very, very neat. The 2K textures really make the game. I mean, if they just made
2007 game, so it's pretty old now.
Yeah, but the real thing here is happy birthday, Clive Barker, right? His birthday was this month in October, I think.
October 5th, yep.
Which
is also my brother's birthday, so happy birthday to Rob also.
Oh, happy birthday, Rob. Yeah, I love Rob. He always does a great job at the Jericho Squad game, running all the game in Roll20.
Yeah, it would be too much having to do the map stuff and the DM stuff.
I like that you put a camera for the dice now, that we can see that.
Yeah, you know what? I've been playing with that, and I think that the problem is that in the recording, the pictures, the images of us get so small when I'm screen sharing that we lose that stuff. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a good way to control what you're seeing when you do screen sharing.
Is there a way to have someone be like, is there a way to direct the Zoom call that someone would be selecting which person becomes full screen or something like that? Because if there was a way to do that, we could. I think I want to. I guess our next game is tomorrow. We're going to be recording again tomorrow. That's right.
But I would really like to. I'd like to have more control over Zoom, because it seems like once you start screen sharing, Zoom wants to kick all the participants off the video. And so if you kind of scooch them up close, then you can see them. And like on our last one, everybody got like the right-hand third of their screens cut off of the edge of the screen. And I'm like, it didn't look like that to me, when I was looking at it, but it came out like that on the recording. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do some test Zoom calls this weekend, we can also work on that.
Yeah, that would be good. Maybe we could do that. Yeah, but anyway, we should probably and so it was Clive Barker's birthday on the 5th of October, and you've got some happy birthday artwork by Anthony Galatis.
That's right. Yeah, he always makes a portrait every time Clive's birthday comes up, and this year was no different. He made a a more recent Clive looking like he looks in the conventions now, a little more aged, but still an awesome portrait. It looks like he's got a few locks of hair kind of becoming horns on one side of the head. And he says, "The Lord of Illusions and Dark Fables, a phenomenal, prodigious artist and horror legend, Mr. Clive Barker.
Yeah.
This is the first of one of my tribute series celebrating the wonders of the great imaginer." So beautiful portrait as usual. I mean, Anthony Galattis I'm a big fan of his. So great job on that.
Yeah, he's a great artist. Speaking of Clive Barker, of course, Revelations announced a change to the Spooky Empire Spooky Empire. From what I saw, it looked like they were postponing the whole convention because of the hurricane. Right. So Clive was supposed to be at the Spooky Empire October 11th through the 13th at the Hyatt Regency in Orlando, Florida. But because we all know Milton is out there, wreaking havoc, they actually decided to postpone Spooky Empire to a later date. The path and strength of the storm was affecting the entire state, so they weren't comfortable celebrating the weekend amongst evacuees and locals. Yeah. So they said, please give us until after the storm to get you all the information as far as rescheduling or refunds. And the Hyatt will automatically be canceling hotel reservations. So keep an eye out for Spooky Empire for updates, and stay safe, everyone. And that's this weekend right now. I actually almost went there, and I was going to do it, except that my dad sort of spontaneously came up to visit me, and I'm like, well, a big part of going to Florida was to visit my dad. And so I just put it off and decided not to. And it's like, I guess it's kind of a good thing because, now it's canceled anyway. Actually, there was something I wanted to ask you about, if you'd heard anything about Rob Ridenauer, because he's in Candler, North Carolina. Because Candler, North Carolina got hit pretty hard by the first hurricane, the one before this one. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if we can get in touch with him. I was wondering if he was okay. I tried to do a Google search on Candler, North Carolina, and I didn't see anything about that town getting wiped out. But Asheville is the one that got hit really hard, and I thought he was close to that one. But I don't know North Carolina very well. Yeah, I've never been there either, unfortunately. But I've been there to Mad Monster Party, but that's it, in Charlotte. All right, we'll do that after the show. Yeah. Watch Mojo had a top 10 underrated horror games, and that was a YouTube video, right? Yeah, it's a YouTube video where they talk about the top 10 forgotten horror video games, and one of them is Undying, which is not a surprise. We just actually talked about how cool Undying is and how it's still, available to purchase and play. Yeah. But definitely, I think that one really shines through. It even has Clive Barker himself voicing one of the characters, right? So, yeah, that's pretty neat. We've got these a cool mansion with a lot of cool weapons and Tibetan spiritual cannons, war cannons, and it looks like a Chinese lion dragon thing, that's a cannon. Yeah, it looks like cool. a Chinese dragon head with the whiskers. Did you watch the whole thing? Do you know what the other games were in that list? The Suffering from 2004, Haunt from 2012, Nightmare Creatures from 97, a few more. I played that one. Which one? Nightmare Creatures? Yeah. Oh, okay. With the link is there in the show notes. So you guys can go check it out. But they talk a little bit about Undying, and I thought that was neat because it's always great to see people give these games some love. So this next one just popped up today on one of the Facebook groups, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Jump Trial, Uncorrected Proof. I'm like, what? What is this? And I posted on here, I said, where did you get this? And the guy didn't reply. Uh-huh. So all I can say is that I remember when, we were talking to people working at Seraphim that they were considering putting together a Jump Tribe book, and even asked me to make scans of all of my books so that they could have one collected book of it. And is that maybe what this is? Or are they starting that process over again? I mean, that person doesn't work there anymore. And so I want to know what this is. I'm not sure because,
I mean, I can look at the bibliography for Jump Tribe in Revelations. It only has the 1, 2, 3, 4 books. The little books, Yabu's Tale, Twath's Tale, Bilam,
well,
and
if you click on the
Kumbunash.
link in our show notes here, this is not one of those.
Yeah, no, I see the cover. I don't know what this is either. That's it looks like this might be another one of those mysterious things that were being worked on many years ago, and then who knows what this is?
If it got far enough to be an uncorrected proof, why didn't Seraphim Inc. publish it? Right? Or whoever put together the money to make this uncorrected proof.
That's a good
Unless
question.
Unless it's new. Maybe it's a new project. And so we'll keep you up to date. Ashley Earp is the person who posted this, and I want to find out from that person. If you're out there, Ashley Earp, please let us know more about where this thing came from. What do you know about it? Because I want to know. I'm a big, I just got through posting a video about Jump Tribe, and I'd like to know, what's going on with this.
Yeah, I wonder if this is something that got nipped in the bud, and someone just found a way to get their hands on a copy of it.
Or the project got resurrected, and maybe this is, coming out soon.
I don't know, but then why would a complete stranger be posting this in a Clive Barker group, right? It looks more
because they just bought this uncorrected proof. Well, they said it's an addition to their collection.
Yeah, but my point is, how there's a lot of stuff that in the last few years has been sold here and there that was Clive Barker stuff, or stuff from Seraphim, or stuff from the store.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this is, if this is just something like that someone got their hands on somehow that was like a one-of-a-kind thing, or maybe there were just a handful of them. So
maybe shopping them out to publishers or something.
Because we're as we're saying this is the first day I'm actually looking at this, so it's the first time for me. But we should probably try to get Phil and Sarah's input on this. Maybe they know a lot more about this than we do. And maybe they can tell us if this was an older project or something that might still be under wraps.
Yeah.
Which, I guess, if it's under wraps, they're not going to tell us that. But
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's probably something that was sent around to publishers to say, hey, we'd like to put this together as a children's book. And then those people don't work for Clive anymore, and maybe that this fell through the cracks.
Yeah, I think that's very likely. But I guess until that other person tells us something, or we get in touch with Phil and Sarah and they confirm or disavow this, I guess we'll just say that this looks like something that never happened to me.
Yeah. Yes,
which is a shame.
I have hopes that it'll come back, but
it's a shame because I would like to see this come out. I don't know what the particulars of the deal that Clive did about the Jump Tribe, but I would like to believe that he still probably has the right to publish that. So I would like to see that be collected. The problem with those
books is that they're so rare that everybody keeps them, everything sealed in the package. So everybody who owns these books are probably not opening the boxes to even read them.
Right, which I think is a crime when you ask me.
Yeah, I opened the box and read those books, but I did it really carefully so that I could, slip them back in again when I was done.
Yeah, but that's an interesting advanced uncorrected proof. I hope that this is something that might still come out in the future, but to me this kind of screams like random collectible that fell through the cracks and someone got their hands on it. I don't know. I'll be proven wrong. I've eaten my shorts once, and I may have to eat them again.
I thought you ate your hat that time.
with the hot sauce. You remember when we did that?
No, it was the
Hulu Halloween,
shorts, yeah.
A Hulu DVD that came out, and I was like, it's never going to come out in physical form. And then I was like, the British Hulu Hellraiser came out, so I had to eat my shorts.
But that barely counts. I mean, on the internet, it was 4K. And they're putting it out on a DVD that's not even in high definition.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's next in our list?
Yeah, you put on here that Peter Atkins post about the 50th anniversary of meeting the dog company friends.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, he did that. I think it was either the last day of August or the first day of September. He said, 2024 marks the 50th anniversary of my meeting Clive Barker, Doug Bradley, Phil Rimmer, Lynn Darnell, and Julie Paget. For the next 5 years.
He put that on Twitter and Threads and Facebook.
Yeah, all of his media. He said, for the next 5 years, we were the dog company. And then he posted a nice little montage of all sorts of pictures of the dog company during their performances and promotional images and stuff, including the Forbidden, Day of the Dog. 50 years. That's a long time from meeting in the late 70s until now. Making short films, making a lot of theater plays and mime plays, and evolving into Edinburgh Theatre Festival and on from there onto the West End. So that's a great post by Pete Atkins.
Yeah. And speaking of Pete Atkins, Encyclopocalypse just republished an old book that he was a contributor to called Spook City. And originally it was published in 2007 by PS Publishing, but now it is out from Encyclopocalypse as both an ebook and a paperback. And so I asked him what stories are in there, and he sent me a screenshot of the inside of it, which was really nice.
Oh, how nice.
So Pete Atkins has a story called Eternal Delight, Here Comes a Candle, Between the Cold Moon, and the Earth, and the Mystery. And so those are the 5 from Pete Atkins, and then Clive Barker has the books of blood, 2 books of blood stories, and one that's really rare. So he's got the Forbidden and Dread, books of blood stories, and he's got Coming to Grief in there, which is that's a rare story. So if people don't have that, here's a way to get it, and that's a really good story. And then it's Ramsey Campbell has. Coming to Liverpool, The Man in the Underpass, Macintosh Willie, Concussion, Through the Walls, and Calling Card.
Very cool. And Doug Bradley does an intro, right?
Yeah. Introduction by Doug Bradley. So, 3 Hellraiser alums right there in this one book.
I know. It's a great book. I need to get that. I mean, Encyclopocalypse is kind of killing it with the releases that they're doing. Yeah. It's really good stuff. Good job,
if you don't have a book handy with Coming to Grief, you should buy it anyway for that alone.
And the Encyclopocalypse has also been putting out things like Moontown audiobook from Peter Atkins, Morningstar audiobook. We've had Joshua Milliken with us, Deeper Than Hell. They put out his book as a book and audiobook.
And the Hellraiser 4 script, right, came out from Encyclopocalypse.
That's right. Yeah. Hellraiser Bloodline script. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, like you said, one very rare story, Coming to Grief from Clive Barker. We got 5 different stories from Pete Atkins and some from Ramsey Campbell with an intro by Doug Bradley.
Yeah, so I think Coming to Grief stuff is probably in 2 old out-of-print compilation books. So here we've got it in a current publication, which is pretty rare. I think people should jump on it.
It's on sale right now, actually. It was $21.99 US. Right now it's on sale for $18.99 paperback, and you can also buy it as an ebook.
Yeah. So that's a good way to go. There's a Spanish release of In the Hills, the Cities.
It's this Spanish website called lecturia.org. Yeah. And they made a post in their website with some cool art, and they posted the entire story in Spanish. So they have that as one of their features for Halloween.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So is the story on the website, or is this like a physical release of that story by itself?
It's a website, so it's got this as a post. They post stories, books, poetry, and they announce stuff.
Spanish, right?
Right, it's all in Spanish. That's
translated to Spanish. And so this artwork, do you think this is painted, or is this created by AI?
I am not sure.
It kind of has that look, that it could have been done in Midjourney, but I couldn't say that for sure.
I only find this image in this website, so let me see if they mention anything on the website about this having a credit for the art or something. Let me check.
That giant is more proportional like a regular person.
Yep.
And the version in the Books of Blood stories had wide legs, right, to give it a good solid base. and then
That's
it
right.
kind of went up in a pyramid shape, to make it work better.
Right. It doesn't say, it just says who translated the story, where it was published, and when, but it doesn't say who made the art. But to be honest, it looks like someone made this, because I don't know that someone would have a good time trying to make a giant with all this detail just using AI.
It's true, and I think that's harder than you think, because a lot of times it just doesn't understand what you're trying to say.
Oh, for sure. It's very stupid in that regard.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're a Spanish speaker, this is a nice little Halloween feature for you. You get to read the story, and you get to see, if you can't read the story in Spanish, you get to see that cool artwork for Popolac. And I'm a sucker for this one, because I always enjoyed seeing giants in mythology or fantasy. They've always been very interesting to me, having giants or giant constructions or kaijus or whatever. It has to be big. If it's big, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's why I get attracted to this idea of, in that Weave World, in that interview that we're going to bring up here that I found, which I guess I can get into that, there was a Radio Wolinski interview with Clive Barker from September of 1987 while he was on tour for Weave World.
Yeah.
And I think this website called Radio Wolinski, he's releasing some old material that they had in their archives. And one of them was a story which had never been released in audio form. It had been released one time in a very edited form in like a Jim Van Hise fanzine called Macabre 2, Stephen King and Clive Barker, Masters of the Macabre. I have that one, but
you can listen to the whole thing in podcast form now.
Yeah,
the link
great.
that you found.
You get to listen to the dulcet tones of like a young Clive Barker talking about art and the fantastique.
Yeah,
and
of course.
the
the quality is what you would expect from a 1987 interview on a tape.
Yeah,
but it's really cool to listen to.
Yeah. He goes on to talk about a lot about the Books of Blood and how he got started, how he wrote the Books of Blood, and the people who were telling him, these stories are not going to be, we don't want to publish them. They're too weird for us. And then Sphere Books was like, give us, you got some more? And it's like, I gave you everything I have. It's like, well, you got to write some more then. And then after that, he talked about Weave World and how he came up with the names for like the different tribes of the seer kind, like the Lows and the Ayas and all that stuff.
Oh, really? I didn't get that far. I got about 20 minutes in, before we had to stop and record.
They talk about coming up with names for characters, and then they go on a tangent about Tolkien and mythology, and it's a very good interview. I really enjoyed it. And
I think he has said in other interviews in the past that even though he does fantasy books, he never wants to get into like linguistics and like Tolkien did. And he always comes up with a reason why everybody speaks English.
Yeah. And he kind of reiterates that position in this interview too about Tolkien. Yeah. He says that get stuff like the Silmarillion, and then people are more concerned about the language of the Elvish than the actual story. And it's that's the thing where he thinks maybe we should pay more attention to the story, because the rest of it, he doesn't really think it's that interesting to be creating an entire language or whatever. But he sees the point of it. But he does comment.
It does give it a kind of verisimilitude, right? It makes it a realism that's really cool. But if you can just come up with a reason why everybody learned English, like Imagica or Abarat, which he does, or Weave World, then you don't need to have all that.
I keep bringing this up. Like when I was younger and I started reading Clive Barker, I would have a little dictionary next to me. So if I found a word I didn't know what it was, I could go into the dictionary and learn it. And that's how I started getting a lot more vocabulary reading Clive Barker. Yeah. For sure, that made me fall in love with the English language. I've said that before.
That's great. I mean, that's a huge influence. Well, and your English is almost perfect. And so every once in a while, if you mispronounce a word, I forget, that English is your second language. And I'm like, why'd you say? Like one time you said Capri Sun instead of Capri Sun.
That's right. Yeah. And I keep saying, I used to say Seraphim instead of Seraphim.
Right.
Because I guess in Portuguese we pronounce the ending sound of Seraphim is like an N.
Oh,
but in English
okay.
it's an M.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds different when I say it. Little idiosyncrasies, I guess it's just the way it goes. Or when I said from your lips to God's size or something instead of God's ears.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because after a while, I just start taking for granted that you're a native English speaker, but you're not. You know, it's just good enough that it fools me for a long time until something comes up like that.
Well, at some point, being a native or just being a very long-time speaker just becomes the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it is a second language.
That's true. Culturally, I'm always going to be missing some cultural references that people in America take for granted.
Things that you didn't grow up with.
Yeah, or things that I grew up with that if I tell you, you're probably going to be like, I never heard of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because people don't see cartoons from Poland or from France or whatever.
Right.
You know?
That's a great
interview.
find. That's a terrific interview, and I can't wait to listen to the rest of it.
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
You had one
Good
other
stuff.
interview, right, that you had spotted.
Someone posted, they bought a magazine, and they found that this magazine had an interview that Harlan Ellison did with Clive Barker. It was a transcription from an interview that Harlan Ellison did on the radio with Clive Barker for a KPFP or something, KPFA. There was a magazine that came out, I think in 95, called Midnight Graffiti Special Number 1, which is the magazine that this guy got. And he posted a picture of it saying, hey, here's a 17-page interview of Clive Barker by Harlan Ellison. So
that's really cool. And there's people out there that we know that there's people out there that collect magazines that have Barker stuff in them because they're always sending us screenshots in our DMs and stuff.
That's
so
right.
Yeah, here's something to look for, right?
Yeah, it's a 17-page interview with Harlan Ellison and Clive Barker, that they did on the radio. It says here, the following was an edited transcript of a live radio broadcast that took place in Los Angeles in 1988. Wow. Harlan Ellison was acting as the host of the KPFK public radio show Mike Hodl's Hour 25. His guest for the evening was Clive Barker in L.A. during negotiations for his first American feature, Hellraiser. So that's you get Clive really at the beginning. So
Hellraiser would have just come out, and he would have been finished with Weave World and starting on the Great and Secret Show.
So this is the moment where if you're listening to the podcast, you should pause it, go to eBay, look up that magazine, and see if you can find it, because there might be some people trying to get that magazine after they listen to our episode.
And what's the magazine called again?
Midnight Graffiti Special Number 1. So there was the normal Midnight Graffiti, and there was this special issue, which I think is 95 or something.
I asked you to repeat it because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of times I'm not paying attention when they say the name of a thing, and then they just keep calling it like the magazine or, whatever. For the whole rest of the time, I'm like, oh, man, now I got to back up and try to find what I missed.
One other thing I found in the previous interview, the Weave World 1987 one, was that he was writing. They were asking him what's coming up next, and Clive was saying, "Well, I'm working on a story for kids," which was Thief of Always, I think. And they also talk about that he was working with someone on a book about a girl with an iguana, and it was going to be a children's book. So I don't know what that was, because he mentions that in that interview, but then I'm like, what was that? And who was that female artist you were working with? Because that's interesting, about a little girl and an iguana.
Wow.
Probably one of those projects that probably got talked about, but then never really went anywhere. I don't know.
Well, and Weave World started its life as a children's book, too.
Yeah, a short story.
Yeah. So maybe he didn't give up on writing a children's book, and he just like, well, this one didn't work out as that, but, maybe I still want to do it.
What was that story that Clive did that involves a girl and another animal, or
There's Pigeon and Teresa.
Yeah,
which one is that? Was a turtle and like a bird.
Oh, okay. So that's not the one he was talking about. Okay. Yeah, but I don't know. Listen to that interview and then let me know what you think. It's really good. And I'll see if I can find this Midnight Graffiti interview by Harlan Ellison, because 17 pages of an interview, that looks like a lot of juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Harlan Ellison was a great author and interviewer too. So
yeah, we'll get the gossip on the upcoming releases in 1988.
Yeah, I like to bring stuff like this to news episodes sometimes, because sometimes there's stuff that comes out that so obscure, or it's like someone puts something on YouTube that hasn't seen the light of day in like 30 years. And I'm like, hey, this is worth noting and putting here so people can go check it out. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, so that was the last of our news stuff. That was a lot. We got through a bunch of them.
We did this in like an hour. That's a good time.
Yeah, and so one thing I wanted to mention is the Collector's Corner Jump Tribe that I mentioned briefly earlier. I've moved it out of the Patreon exclusive area, and now anybody can watch it, and I've been sharing it today. So that's available for people to watch. It's not unlisted on YouTube anymore, or only for Patreon subscribers. Now anybody can see it. Tomorrow we're going to be recording Jericho Squad again, because our last one was a part 1. We were like halfway through. It's sort of half battle and half foot race, right? So,
yeah, racing down the hill from the Jokalailau Mountains down to Beatrix.
You know, in Seward here in Alaska, they have a mountain marathon, they call it, and people run down this mountain, and every year people like trip and fall and hurt themselves and die on it. And that was kind of part of the inspiration for that. Wow.
I understand the falling down and getting hurt, but dying,
last year there were 2 people that just disappeared. They think they might have gone off the wrong side of the mountain.
Oh no. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
I know the hilarious, race down the hill chasing like a big cheese and stuff they do in like England or Scotland or whatever, But that one is in Seward, you say?
Mm-hmm. It's a really steep downhill run, so people, if they get too much momentum, they trip and roll down the hill and hurt themselves and stuff. Yeah, it's around the 4th of July, and we made the mistake of going there and not knowing about that race. And that whole town gets filled up with people and cars and stuff, and we couldn't find a place to stay. So we try to stay away from them around that time now.
Well, it's nice to see people celebrating freedom by running down the hill and falling down the hill and getting themselves seriously hurt.
So that's Jericho Squad. We're going to be hopefully finishing that up. We've got we're going to be recording a little earlier to make sure we have enough time to finish. And then we'll come back to Boom Hellraiser comics discussion. We've kind of stayed away from it longer than I expected, but we always have so many different things to talk about.
Right. On the upside, though, I mean, this is probably the quickest turnover in terms of recording one RPG episode and then doing another session almost at the next week after. So that's I don't know how that happened that way, but awesome.
Yeah, it would be. If we weren't doing this news episode right now, it would have been 2 in a row. Yeah. I know. I'd like to do that more, but then I feel like then we're neglecting all the other stuff and the stuff that people really kind of expect from us.
Sure. But I appreciate everybody else's availability on this.
I do too.
And I'm pretty happy to continue the wacky race that we're doing downhill.
Yeah, I think Cherdovir, it might be in the lead right now, if I remember right.
I think I was neck to neck with someone else, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that vulture demon guy. In D&D, they're called a Vrock.
I honestly thought you were going to make something about us looking back and getting, taken over by some demon or something, just like Hell's Event. So I was constantly thinking
that is happening. That's what that is when you look at a demon and see through their illusions.
Right. I'm just saying I was making sure that I was looking forward. I think I mentioned at one point, oh, yeah, I'm just looking forward. I'm chasing that guy.
Yeah, you didn't want to look back at somebody as you pass them.
Yeah, but I noticed nobody else was saying they were looking backwards, so I was like, maybe I was wrong, and that's not what this is about. But
like Lot's wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, right, I'm in the lead, but I actually almost didn't do anything or interact with anybody except more recently I started like kind of fighting with another one. But for the most part, I was just running and doing my thing and just staying away from everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and so far you're pretty much in the lead. Nobody has seen exactly what Butterfield can do yet.
Yeah, he's pretty mysterious, but I appreciated the idea of him sitting in his hotel or in room, sitting almost in a frozen chair in like a big frozen room.
Yeah, in the story there was a demon that came out of like a hole in the floor, right? And it froze the guy solid and just instantly killed him.
At Hell's Event? Yeah.
The guy that was investigating, I think he was like the manager for the racer or something.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I need to read that again. That's going to be another interesting story to get back to on the Book Club of Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be fun. Boom Comics, we'll get back to, is it The Road Below? Is that the one we're working on? Yeah. The parts,
I think so.
The last half.
Mm-hmm.
And then Quartet of Torment. We want to get to disc 4 with Pete Atkins again. So, Pete, if you're listening, we're looking forward to having you back again to talk about that final disc of the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment.
Awesome.
And then we'll have, of course, the Book Club of Blood, which we've talked about.
And another thing that has also been started is a Patreon post for an obscure thing that Clive Barker was involved with called Teddy Scares from 2006.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, you never got that one, did you? No.
No.
I don't think it actually came out. It was just a cartoon, and I think they were supposed to have like little teddy bears to sell, but I'm not sure if they ever got to the teddy bear selling part.
Right, yeah. It's sort of like Jump Tribe, I guess, right? Where, it gets really far, but not quite all the way to the stores.
Yeah, you can still find Teddy Scares plush bear teddy bears on eBay. There's a lot of stuff on eBay. I just looked it up.
And another thing I want to do, and not this weekend because we're already doing 2 podcast episodes this weekend, but I would like us to do a collector's corner about Nightbreed and Cabal. And I think we should we should start out with a Zoom video of just you and I going through our collections and holding stuff up and talking about it. And then we can edit in facts and things that we write later, and so we can make it kind of one long thing about Nightbreed and Cabal in our collections.
Yeah, some of my stuff is still in Portugal, but I got some stuff here. I got some stuff that is pretty rare, so I guess I can pull up some stuff.
If you have pictures of the things in Portugal too, we can.
Oh yeah, I do. Absolutely.
We can just screen share those or whatever.
Yeah, that's going to be a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. Maybe next weekend because we're recording 2 episodes this week, and so we don't have to record anything next weekend because I'm just going to be posting the Jericho episode next weekend.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, keep an eye out for our Patreon, and this podcast having no beginning will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Leave a message for us using the SpeakPipe link on our blog. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.